Hello, I'm Dr. Missick. I'm running for Texas State Representative in HD 18, which is Liberty, San Jacinto, East Montgomery County, and Hardin County. And what I want to talk about is our need for the abolishment of property taxes. Here in Texas, property taxes are onerous, they're confiscatory, and they're exploitative. It's too high, and I believe it's like the highest rates in the country. And it's a terrible thing. What do we do about it? And I believe that we're being played by Austin, where they're not really lowering taxes. It's just like a shell game. And we need to tackle the issue of property taxes. And as I said, sadly, 2 years ago my father passed away, and I'm inheriting this estate, and I have to pay the property taxes on it, and they're very high. It's unreasonable. We need to bring property tax rates down, but the best way to do that is just to totally abolish and eliminate property taxes altogether. And when I win, I am going to introduce legislation in Austin to eliminate property taxes. And at the very least, we want to bring property taxes in Texas down to reasonable rates. Now, I want to recommend the organization called Texans for Fiscal Responsibility. And I want to discuss some of the things that they say about property taxes. One of the concerns that people say is like, well, how are you going to fund the government without property taxes? There are ways. And we have to tackle the issue of runaway spending. Just recently, Tucker Carlson did an interview with Vladimir Putin. And our enemies and adversaries around the world are looking at America, and they're seeing that we're $33 trillion or $34 trillion in debt. And this is unsustainable. And we can't just go around spending money like drunken sailors. There's going to be a day where you have to pay the piper. It's going to bring financial collapse and economic decline. We have to have fiscal responsibility. And things are out of control, and we need to hold our government responsible and say we got to stop runaway spending. Listen to this. This is from Texans for Fiscal Responsibility. Texas has levied a property tax since its founding. Currently, Texas boasts the sixth highest property tax burden in the United States. And property taxes themselves have increased 181% in the last 20 years. Not only are homeowners drowning while trying to keep up with increasing tax burdens, but the taxes will never stop, even after you completely own your home. This means you pay perpetual rent to the state of Texas, the government, for the right to live at your own property. So here in Texas, you don't really own your property, you rent it from the state. Texans for Fiscal Responsibility believes that the concept of property taxes is immoral and unsustainable for a free society. There's a better way to fund local governments and our schools without creating any new taxes. Right before the ongoing 88th legislative session began, the Texas Comptroller gave his biennial review estimate, BRE, which confirmed speculation that lawmakers face a historic budget surplus of $32.6 billion, surpassing the previous estimate given in July of 2022 of nearly $27 billion of surplus. As you can imagine, many lawmakers and lobbyists are chomping at the bit on how to spend it. Texans for Fiscal Responsibility believes that the money should be given back to its rightful owners, you, the taxpayers. Using just this and future surpluses, Texas can eliminate the need for school property taxes within the next 10 years, or even less, if lawmakers actually cut government spending simultaneously. In the most recent Republican primary election, more than 75% of Republican voters agreed that property taxes should be ended. Will Republican lawmakers respond accordingly? Well, we need to. We need to support our voters. Do you think the government is too big? Obviously it is. Virtually every taxpayer consistently answers the question with a resounding yes. If taxpayers feel as though the size and scope of their government is too large, then why do we continue to allow our state budget to grow at all? Texans for Fiscal Responsibility believes is because we start from the wrong premise on state spending. Did you know that since the beginning of the 21st century, Texas's state budget has increased by almost 170% and is on track to triple in size in just a few years? In contrast, Texas population has increased only by 40% during that same period. This all happened because fiscal responsibility is not prioritized by the state legislature. Yes, in recent legislative sessions, they have slowed the growth and adopted a new constitutional spending limit based on the growth of population and inflation, but the government still grows this way. With a budget surplus of a record $32.6 billion this legislative session, and with inflation hitting another 4-year high, causing the cost of living to rise, coupled with reportedly high property tax appraisals across the state, despite the promised relief by the state legislature, the time is now for the state to get its fiscal house in order and prioritize fiscal responsibility. To fix a bloated government, we must cut the size and scope of the government down to a size that's both manageable and reasonable, as the founders intended. Texans for Fiscal Responsibility believes the best way to do this is by capping our budget where it currently sits and encouraging lawmakers to cut wasteful agencies and programs. They have billions of dollars in tax surplus, and yet they won't give us property tax relief. It's time to hold the government accountable to represent the needs of the people, and we need fiscal responsibility, and we need the elimination of property taxes. People have looked at the issues. We have economists who have looked at it, and there is a better way forward, and we need to have new legislators in the House run out the rhinos, because fiscal conservatism is important. Ernest Bales, he campaigned as a fiscal conservative. He's a tax and spend liberal. He earned a 38% from Texas for Fiscal Responsibility. And one of the biggest problems we have in the Republican Party is tax and spend Republicans, honestly. I remember Paul Ryan campaigned as a fiscal conservative, trying to cut spending, actually reduce the growth of spending. He's not even proposing actually reversing spending or cutting it, just limit the growth of spending. And the Democrats attacked him for it. They did a commercial where he had a grandma in a wheelchair and he runs up a hill and throws her off a cliff because he wants to reduce government spending. Well, the Democrats' policies are throwing us all over a roof. And if we have an economic collapse, that's going to affect the elderly as well. We need to have fiscal responsibility. It disturbs me that we have Paul Ryan, who is running as a fiscal conservative, his whole political career. When he became the Speaker of the House, he passed this gazillion-dollar omnibus package. And you realize that everything he was saying about fiscal conservatism was just lip service. He didn't believe it, because when he took power, did he do anything to cut reckless government spending? No, he exceeded everything that went on before. And the same thing is going on with the Bush family, right? Of course, they're not in power right now, thank God. But we need to see them implement, or Republicans need to get in there and implement fiscal responsibility. Now, I know when Trump was in power, you have a Democrat. The Democrats control Congress, and you have to deal with that situation. But when we're in the situation of a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican presidency, we need to have sound economic policies and stop this runaway spending. I mean, if there's a Democrats in there and you have to work with them, that's one thing. But when we control all three branches, and we have, and they continue to spend recklessly, then we see we have a problem. I am not an economist. I'm more of a social conservative, but I think these fiscal issues are important. And we need to have fiscal responsibility so we can have a secure and prosperous America. Let's stop giving lip service to fiscal conservatism, and let's implement fiscal responsibility in our government. And let's reduce the tax burden that is a burden, and that, especially with property taxes, that the citizens of Texas are suffering from. We need liberation from excessive taxation, and we need to cut and eliminate property taxes. So please vote on March 5th. Vote early from February 20th to March 1st so we can make needed change in Texas and have reduction and the elimination of property taxes. Thank you, and God bless you.